Today I'm going to talk to you about the 4 types of conflict there are in a relationship. And
There's 5 types.
It's 4. So we're going to talk about the 4 types of conflict there are in a relationship. And more importantly...
There are 5 types. Count them on your stupid notes in front of you. You never believe me when I tell you these things.
That's because you're always so bossy and trying to micromanage me.
Well, maybe if you were just a little bit more organized and a little bit more logical, then this kind of thing wouldn't happen.
Are you kidding me? Hold on a second. So today we're going to talk about the 5 types of conflict there are in a relationship. And if you've ever been part of a little bickering match like that, you might be able to connect with this video. So there were 2 things going on in that little snippet of a conflict. Number 1 was the type of conflict, and number 2 was the pattern of interaction that escalated it. And I call that the blame game. My hope with this video is to help you spot if you're stuck in the blame game pattern, and also to give you a framework from which you might be able to look at the type of conflict you're having in your relationship. When you know what type of conflict you're having, you have a better chance of knowing how to handle it. So I'm hoping that this is a simple way to diagnose what you and your partner are actually talking about. And if you don't know me, my name is Oliver, and I'm a family systems and relationship therapist in Los Angeles, and I love helping people grow great relationships. If you're curious about relationships and connecting more deeply with people, hit follow and subscribe. I put a video up usually each week, and there's often handouts and worksheets and PDFs that go along with it that are all completely free. If you're really struggling with conflict in your relationship, check out the Conflict Compass on mypeoplepatterns.com. It's a course that has all of my thoughts, tips, tools, exercises about managing conflict and conflict resolution in one place. And my top tip, if you take the conflict style quiz, you get a 50% off discount. So there's at least 5 types of conflict: task, process, hierarchy, personal, and anxiety. As you'll see in a bit, things might start at one level of disagreement, perhaps how we load the dishwasher, because my way is right and yours is clearly wrong, but that can quickly slip down into a personal level of conflict, because even in that little statement, I've just judged you and called you wrong for the way that you clean the dishes. And that's bordering into a personal layer. So conflict can move up and down and around these types, but this framework should still help you identify how it starts. And if you're able to see how a disagreement starts, you can focus on the conversation and the resolution before it escalates into personal and hurtful layers. So the first 2 types of conflict are about task and process. This is like a goal or a job, if you will, and the way that you reach those goals or accomplish the job. In the workplace, you can probably imagine that this type of conflict comes up often over the direction of a project or allocation of resources. So perhaps somebody assigned you a task that you have to get done by the end of the day, and you can't get it done because you actually have to leave on time to go to the doctor's appointment. If that's the case, we have a conflict there because we've got a difference of opinions of when this project can be done and how much time it takes. In romantic relationships, we sometimes have task-related conflicts too. If I assume that you are going to turn the dishwasher on and I come home and it's actually filled with dirty dishes, we might have a disagreement there. We might potentially argue about who had the task or the responsibility to turn the dishwasher on. So this is a relatively easy form of conflict to solve, provided you can take the heat out of the conversation and decide rationally on a solution. Process conflict is an extension of this. And in the workplace, there's going to be conflicts of this nature around how something should be done. For example, team members might have a different view on how to complete a project or how to brainstorm ideas. In romantic relationships, we can have the same kind of conflict about how things are done or how things should be done, like how you load the dishwasher, how you raise your kids, how you talk to in-laws or strangers. We can make little comments like, "Why did you put the salt back there?" Which infers that you put the salt in the wrong place because you don't know how to keep the kitchen tidy and organized, or my process is different from yours, and if there's a judgment in there, my process is better than yours. So task and process occur in romantic relationships because of differences in opinions, and those can be solved with rational conversations unless it turns into the blame game. In relationships, a cycle of blame comes about when one individual consistently points fingers at their partner for any issues, especially related around task and process. And instead of talking it out, you make blame and fault finding the center of the grievance rather than the task or the process. This not only escalates conflicts, but also makes the blamed partner feel attacked and defensive, and much more likely to attack and blame back. So this is a cycle, and it doesn't help in resolving conflict, but amplifies conflict. The blame game can have really disastrous impacts on a relationship. It totally shuts down communication. It makes individuals hesitant to voice their concerns or their feelings, so we're not talking anymore. It's emotionally distancing. The blamed partner might feel a need to pull back, which creates emotional distance, which erodes intimacy and connection. And it can build resentment. Continuous blame can breed resentment, which manifests in various negative behaviors, right? And ultimately, all of this leads to a breakup. So if left unchecked, the blame cycle can really be the end of a relationship. Open communication is crucial to shift a mindset of blame to responsibility, because in mature and healthy relationships, we have to take responsibility for the negative engagement and the actions that we take that have hurt people or upset people or disappointed people. Happy, healthy relationships are partnerships, right? Where we have to own what we're doing and what we're saying. And if that seems too much, at least consider that you are going head to head with your partner, and it might be more helpful to go head to head with the problem. Well, let me show you. This is what the blame game looks like. It's two people in a relationship going head to head with each other. And what they are doing there is making each other the problem. This is not necessarily true because the problem is the problem. If you're in a cycle of the blame game, what's going to be really important is instead of going head to head with each other, is to align with your partner and attack the problem, not each other. The solution to this is to realize that there's a middle ground here in the relationship. In every relationship, there is a you, there is a me, and there is a we. If I think it was your job to turn the dishwasher on, that's a me thing. If you think it's my job to turn the dishwasher on, that's a you thing. There's two me's going against each other there. But what do we both need? What is the problem here? What is the third thing? And it's neither you nor me. And in this case, it's a way to remind us of whose turn it is to turn the dishwasher on. That's the actual problem that we need to come up against. We're not blaming, we're not accusing. Instead, we're looking for a third thing that's a solution to the problem. Does any of this feel familiar to you? If so, I want to hear from you. Drop me a comment below. And if you have questions, I can often make a video explaining myself better. A really good place to start understanding more of your own dynamics in conflict is to take the conflict style quiz on mypeoplepatterns.com, and it will help you really understand some of these patterns. And there's a 50% off discount if you take that quiz, sign up for the emails for the Conflict Compass course. The third type is about hierarchy and roles. I believe that successful relationships are balanced relationships in which there's an equality to most things wherever possible. I see many couples in my private practice that are having problems because of some inequality, and it's usually financial, sometimes it's age, sometimes it's power. Financial inequality, for example, means that one person is earning more than the other. It doesn't mean that the relationship is doomed or bad in any way. It does mean, however, that this imbalance in the hierarchy needs to be addressed and talked about. That's because most often in relationships, hierarchy and roles are negotiated unconsciously. So most often couples don't have to have direct conversations about power and roles because they just sort of work themselves out naturally based on talents and interests and who does what. So you do the cooking, maybe I do the cleaning. That's a balance. And so to be perfectly clear on that, a balanced relationship is not one in which everything is 50-50 split down the middle. That would be really complicated if I only clean one half of the house or only cook my own meals. So what tends to happen though is couples work out through trial and error, and there might be a little upset along the way, who does what and how we complement each other. So I might have a bit more energy in the evening and I'll put the kids to bed, but if you wake up early, maybe you wake them up. You might be better at numbers and taxes and do the financial stuff, and I'll, I don't know, plan the vacations. When a couple comes to see me and there's hierarchy or role conflict, I can guarantee it's because this negotiation, this unconscious negotiation, hasn't happened naturally. And I can almost guarantee that they haven't had the conversations consciously because they don't know that they need to happen. When there's conflict around roles or hierarchy that's not being resolved, then we have to have a big conversation. So in the money example, maybe one partner feels inadequate or guilty or has some feelings about the fact that they don't earn as much as their partner, and those feelings have gone unexpressed. There might be guilt or shame or feelings of self-doubt, I don't know. But what needs to happen is these feelings need to be aired, and perhaps that partner just needs some assurance that the partner who makes the money is okay with it. So another couple might come in because they haven't had a conversation about parenting. One partner might assume that parenting is a 50-50 job and they're going to split how the kids are taken care of. If that's an assumption, then it hasn't been talked about and processed. We haven't decided that officially. And when it's not decided, it's going to cause all kinds of bickering and arguments. So what do you think about hierarchy and role conflict? Is that something you recognize in your relationship? Did it make sense? If you want me to explain that more, just let me know. I'm happy to answer in the comments or perhaps even make another video for you. Personal or relationship conflict is the big one. This is when conflict is not about a task or a disagreement around process, roles, or hierarchy. Now, it might start there, but it has evolved into a personal attack. It can often start off innocently bickering about the dishwasher and whose job it was to turn it on, but then it goes into attacks on the character. When things get like this in a romantic relationship, we've got some issues. John Gottman, a famous psychologist, talks about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And these are signs that he sees going on, signs and behaviors he sees after reviewing hours and hours of footage of couples. And he did this longitudinal study and saw that there were certain behaviors that predicted if a couple was going to stay together over 7 or 8 years. And these 4 behaviors were criticism, stonewalling, defensiveness, and contempt. There's literally a million videos you can find on YouTube about this, but what I do want to focus on is contempt, because I think that falls into this personal type of conflict. It's an attack, not just on a bad habit, but on a person as a whole. Contempt is the worst of these 4 horsemen. It's the #1 predictor of divorce. It's destructive, it's defeative, and it shows up in statements that come from a position of superiority. Sarcasm, cynicism, eye-rolling, sneering, hostile humor. If you feel that you're in a pattern of contempt, this is really serious, and I highly suggest you seek the help of a therapist to navigate this territory. Hopefully, that therapist will help you completely rechange the way that you interact with your relationship. The final type of conflict is anxiety-driven conflict. And before I explain that, I would love it if you could hit comment, share, subscribe, any and all of those buttons. It's a form of feedback that tells me people want to hear more about these things and lets me know that I should probably keep on making these videos. Anxiety-driven conflict is probably the most subtle yet most pervasive type of conflict. Understanding it can be a total game changer in how you manage disagreements with your partner. Sometimes our underlying anxiety, stress, worry in a relationship can manifest as anger or frustration. Anxiety-driven conflict often arises when one partner feels insecure, unappreciated, worried, most often about aspects of the relationship, at other times not so. So if you're one of the very sensible people like me and Sarah who like to get to the airport on time, you're going to have a lot of anxiety if you're running late. And you might be a little bit snippy or cranky when James thinks it's a good idea to get the car washed on the way to LAX right before you catch a flight. I mean, seriously, who does that? The argument that happens in the car is not just about task conflict, the job of getting to the airport, or a process conflict about how we get to the airport or how we do vacations. It goes deeper, and it's about what it represents. Sarah's insistence on planning or being on time might stem from anxiety about things feeling out of control or being late. And there are a lot more subtle anxieties that are provoked in a relationship. Appreciation is one. When we don't feel appreciated by our partner, we can become insecure or anxious that they are losing interest in us and they might leave us. So we tend to mask that fear with angry accusations and demands for more time. Approval is another one. If we feel we're not meeting the expectations of our partner or getting enough approval from them, this can trigger anxieties and fear because it impacts our sense of belonging and togetherness. This type of conflict can be really challenging to identify because it's not actually necessarily about the thing that we're fighting about. It's often about the deeper unspoken fears and insecurities that each partner sort of brings to the table. Recognizing this can be a real breakthrough moment. If you're able to identify underneath your anger that you're feeling anxious, you've changed the game. If you don't know why you're in an argument with your partner and it's not task, it's not process, it's not hierarchy, and it's not personal, think about what anxieties or fears are covering your anger. Remember that good old-fashioned cheesy anger iceberg that every therapist likes to talk about? Well, it's a good reminder, actually, because anger is just the surface feeling, and underneath there's all kinds of things going on. All right, so I hope that helped you get really clear on 5 types of conflict that there are in a relationship. I'll maybe put a little PDF download below if you're interested in learning a bit more about this or want a handout from this video, and hit follow and subscribe for more.